I've been wanting to make this video for a while and I'm finally sitting down to do it. So welcome everyone to the only honest review of the Manifestation Babe Academy on YouTube.
Honey, am I perfect 10? Whoa, whoa. And if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to...
Hello, welcome. Welcome back if you're a current subscriber. Welcome if you're new here. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, my name is Bethany. I was in Beachbody, which is a multi-level marketing company, from 2014 through 2021, and the last 4 years have been deconstructing and deprogramming from the cult mindset. It is important to note that I was in Beachbody. Obviously, I have a lot of MLM content on my channel here. You can check that out if you want to. I have a whole playlist of anti-MLM videos, but it is important to note that the current manifestation and life coaching and kind of personal development industrial complex, for lack of a better word, is part of the MLM ecosystem. They feed into each other, and that's an important part of my story. I got into manifestation in 2019 directly as a part of being in an MLM. If you are in an MLM, anyone, they will tell you to do personal development. And through that, you can be introduced to personal development books like The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein, or Get Rich Lucky Bee by Denise Duffield Thomas, or Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. There is a feminized version of Tony Robbins that is just as predatory, maybe even more so, because it's packaged in this pretty feminine, soft, new age spirituality box. And that is a very deceptive box, and it can really mess with you. So I started getting into these books at the same time I was going through a bit of my own religious deconstruction. And as someone who has always been religious and had put my entire identity in Christianity growing up, it was very destabilizing when you start to question your beliefs, when you start to see things that you hadn't seen before, when you start to see inconsistencies and experience cognitive dissonance. It not only feels like a loss of religion, it feels like a loss of identity. It also feels like a loss of community. So it can be very easy for some other kind of group think community that is rooted in some sort of spirituality to immediately swoop in and take that place without you even really realizing it. So I obviously was more inclined to follow or believe something that was led by women and more, it felt feminine focused, due to a lot of the reason that I was deconstructing is how women are treated by the evangelical church. And just not wanting to put up with that anymore and realizing it wasn't consistent with biblical teachings. And that's a rant for a whole other day. And I can recommend, books and things for you to check out if that's something you're interested in exploring. But all that being said, the toxic combination of being in an MLM and being vulnerable to new spiritual ideas and being in kind of a desperate phase in my MLM, I kind of started to have the peak of my success in like 2018, 2019, and it started slowing down. And so the fall of 2019 is when I enrolled in Rich Babe Academy, which I'm not going to review because it is no longer a product that she makes. And everything, she used to have two different courses, Manifestation Babe Academy and Rich Babe Academy, and they got rolled into the Manifestation Babe Academy. So in a way, I'm kind of reviewing both in this video. I also have my not Shakeology here. I like to try different types of protein shakes and see which I like the best, because a protein shake is still like a very quick and I can take it on the go type of breakfast for me. So if you see my straw in the corner, This is my not Shakeology. It's like that episode of 30 Rock where Jack tries to replace all the pages with a robot and names it Not Kenneth. That's why I call my Shakeology, or my not Shakeology, which right now is Orgain chocolate peanut butter. It's not Shakeology. So that's what I'm having right now. I need to talk about MLM as well as how it feeds into this manifestation trap. Because when you're in an MLM, you, especially like me, like I had a lot of success kind of early on. I had a hot market, a hot warm market, and I recruited someone who also had a hot market, and she recruited a lot of people, and she had someone who recruited a lot of people. So my income with Beachbody went up really quickly in that first couple of years because the MLM structure worked for me. The people under me who were contributing to my success started to realize that, and they started exploring other options because they being the victim of the structure, they saw it quicker than I did as the beneficiary of the structure. So at that point, I was already like full on in it. I attributed my success to myself, and I thought that I was doing better because I was just like better at it, a harder worker, more charismatic, a better person because you're doing personal development. And they kind of convince you in MLMs that if it's not going well for you, it's something that's wrong inside of you. And I fully believed that. So that is also how it leads into manifestation, because manifestation tells you if your life doesn't look the way you want it to, it's because your vibration is off. Something in your subconscious, something in your mind is holding you back. And that's the essential thesis. The one sentence version of manifestation is your inner world creates your outer world. So I purchased Rich Babe Academy in 2019 because I thought my financial struggles were coming from my money mindset and not the fact that I was in a predatory business model. So I had an accountability group. Actually, I had two different accountability groups because one of them was kind of weird, and some friends I had made in the academy adopted me into theirs. And I noticed in both groups, none of us really got any results. And we all were very dedicated to the program. We did it. So then Catherine Zinkina, the manifestation babe, decided to roll both programs together and create a new, at the time, 16-week program. I believe it's now 24 weeks. I will be reviewing the January 2021 version, which it's all going to be the same, you guys. So you will get the goods here. So she had promised at the beginning of Rich Babe Academy, this is all you'll need. This is the program. There's no secret stuff. This is not going to roll into another program. So she did grandmother us into the Manifestation Babe Academy. I didn't have to buy it to take it. I only had to give a $200 deposit, which once I submitted all my homework, I would get back at the end upon completion of the program, which I did. So to be fair, she did uphold that end of her bargain. But that is kind of the first red flag I want to point out to you. A lot of people will not finish. And so it was a way for her to make more money off of her current people who had already bought her program. She couldn't charge them for the new program because she had already said everything was included in this program and there's not going to be another like secret program that wasn't included here. And like she knows that not everyone is going to complete it, right? Like, you know, if you own a gym, that probably half the people who are paying $50 a month to be a gym member aren't showing up at the gym, at least not every month. So it's something we know about humans, about people, and that's the first red flag. So if you're with me this far, I know it's been about 10 minutes of background and kind of setting the scene, but I do think that's important. So we're going to get into exactly what is in the program and whether or not it works. So grab a snack, grab a drink. Also, if you see me in a different look and a different outfit, in the second half of this video. I don't know if I'm gonna have the energy to film this whole video in one sitting, so we will see. So grab your snack, take a break, pet your cat if you have one, and let's get into the Manifestation Babe Academy January 2021 16-week review. The first thing that Catherine Zenkina does in the Manifestation Babe Academy is tell you her story, which is really interesting and riddled with red flags. So essentially, first of all, let me disclaim, I know I ran a disclaimer at the beginning, but all of this is my opinion and my experience. I won't be sharing, clips or pictures of the slides. I won't be sharing any material that is behind a paywall. I will be reviewing the material that I studied and letting you know what it is. This is not any more than what she describes when she sells the program, so I'm not giving away anything other than my own experience and reaction to it. So there is no grounds for her to try to copyright strike me or sue me or anything, and if she did, it would just be more proof that manifestation doesn't work, because if you have an abundance mindset, people will buy your program anyway, or you can make money some other way, right? Even if I did, put it all out on the internet that people could pirate, you could still make money because you have a rich mindset. Isn't that the case? Anyway, so maybe I'm giving the game away too early, what I really think of this program, but if you've watched any of my other content, you know where this is going. So Catherine shares her story. Her story is that she is a Russian immigrant who moved to the US when she was very young, and her parents fought about money a lot, and that is the start, apparently, of her money problems. When she was 16, her friend gave her a copy of The Secret and said, "This is how my grandfather is so rich, and this is how money works for him. He doesn't work for money." And she read it, and it kind of stayed with her. And she went on to college. Apparently, she was pre-med, and she and her boyfriend at the time went to a Tony Robbins event. That's the first red flag. Tony Robbins is one of the original scammers. There are scammers before him, like we've talked about Napoleon Hill, some of these older scammers. I feel like Tony Robbins is the original scammer, almost like the creator of the modern day personal development industrial complex scammer. He's a raging misogynist. He has so many accusations of SA against him, and the way that he treats women in his conferences is well documented, like in his own tapes and recordings, and you can just witness the misogyny. Like, he's not even trying to hide it. It's very overt. He's a terrible person, and he's gotten rich off of exploiting people and their desperation to improve their lives. So his conferences also cost, as far as I know, $1,200, somewhere in there. They're over $1,000. They may have gotten more expensive, because I know when I was in Beachbody, people were going to some of his events and it cost $1,200 at that point. Obviously, inflation and people in this world like to jack up their prices because they are worth more now, and they are holding themselves to what their value is and all the bullshit reasons that they give for charging an arm and a leg for essentially nothing. So Catherine goes to a Tony Robbins event, which means, so she's a college student, she's in college, she's privileged enough to go to college, she's privileged enough to be able to afford this $1,000+ ticket. While she's at the event, she has a realization, a spiritual download, that she needs to break up with her boyfriend, drop out of school, and move to LA because it's what she wants to do. This is a 21-year-old woman whose frontal lobe is not fully developed. So she decides to do that. And she uses this as an example of her struggling with money, because she voluntarily dropped out of college and moved to a city that she couldn't afford as a 21-year-old who doesn't have a career yet. And so she's living on her grandmother's couch. That is to her an example of struggling with money. To me, that's an example of being an idiotic 21-year-old and having extreme privilege, having family that lives in this very expensive cost of living city. LA is 2 or 3. I think New York is the most expensive, San Francisco might be the most expensive city, but New York and San Francisco are both very expensive. LA is up there. It's up there. It's more expensive than Chicago, I can tell you as a Chicagoan. But that is an example of extreme privilege. You can choose to just move to another city and have a place to live while you hunt for a job and get on your feet. Like, even the ability to live with family and have your rent covered, even if you're sleeping on a couch, like, sure, that's uncomfortable. It'd be better to have your own bedroom. But it's not like she got fired or her life imploded in some other way, or she got accused of plagiarism and kicked out of school and had nowhere else to go, which would still be like a tough thing to go through, but still an example of privilege that you have family that can support you financially and give you a place to live. A lot of people don't have that. But in this case, that's not even what happened. She voluntarily put herself in this position and then acted like this is a horrible position and she was suffering so much. So during this time, she was reading a lot of manifestation and decided to start Manifestation Babe, LLC, and teach people how to become rich. She got a day job while she was doing this to support herself and to be able to get off of her grandmother's couch, and started selling these courses. And that is what are we on? The 4th, 5th, 6th red flag? Anyway, that's another issue. It proves that she had never manifested anything. She did not prove the theory that she was teaching. She read it and immediately saw a way that she could scam other people, that she could make money by teaching people who were desperate, who want to have a better quality of life, nothing solid, no real world skills, and just random esoteric religion. Manifestation is a religion. So that's Catherine Zinkina's story. Is this a person who you should pay $2,000 to teach you how to be successful? She's never had a real job, a real career, and she dropped out of college. I guess she's good at marketing. She's good at marketing. She's good at branding. She has a very clear brand, and she got in on an industry early on social media and was able to capitalize on this. This was also at the time when MLMs were at their height. So you have a lot of people not making money in something that they think it's something wrong with their mindset. They're not looking at the business model. And so they're looking for other ways. So many people in Manifestation Babe Academy were MLMers. So that's where we are. Let's get into the first module. Module 1 is building the foundation. And I just want to point out that module 1 is our first instance of nothing is an original source. Initially, like literally the entire program, nothing that Catherine teaches is original to her. Everything is taken from someone else and just given her own twist on it. So she can't get mad about this video because this is me taking something she created and giving my own twist on it in a commentary review video. All right, environment/results, behaviors, capabilities, values and beliefs, identity, and spirit. And her assertion is that you need to go the opposite way. You need to start with what you believe about yourself, like your spirit, your identity, who you are. That informs your values, which then informs your behaviors and your results. Okay, I can see that, but we know something to be true, and that is the environment you're born in is the biggest factor on what your life is going to be like. If you are born into wealth, you have opportunities that other people don't have. If you even have the amount of privilege of having a family member house you for free, so that you can take all the money you're making and use it to create an online business selling courses, you have opportunities that someone who maybe had to start working at 14 to help their family pay rent and has never even gotten to be a child their whole life, they don't have those opportunities. She even uses the example of if you are wanting to downsize, she alleges that this is a good example of how you have to start with your belief that you are a healthy person, you're a fit person, and that informs your values. So that's someone who values eating vegetables and exercising, and that informs your behaviors, which then informs your results. What I would argue is that even having the ability to start there is a huge privilege. If you live in a food desert, your environment has already screwed you over from being able to easily access fresh vegetables. If you have to work multiple jobs, when are you going to have time to food prep? When are you going to have time to work out? If you don't have a space in your apartment to work out for free, if you can't afford a gym, if you can't feed yourself well because you're just barely trying to make ends meet, then it doesn't matter what you think about yourself. Your environment is the determining factor. So that's module 1. She's already trying to gaslight you into thinking that your situation, your environment is the least important of what it takes to become wealthy and live your dream life, which is proven to not be true. Okay, so module 2, this is the what is manifestation? Kind of like the manifestation 101 of it all. I wanted to say here, I think this is a good place to say this. The reason I'm making this video now, even though I've thought about it actually for a couple of years, if you're new to my channel, you may notice that I made a few videos in 2023, in the fall of 2023. And then I basically took all of 2024 off of YouTube. And I came back at the beginning of this year with anti-MLM content. And one of the first videos that I made is called The Scam of Manifestation. It's just me talking. It's a stream of consciousness video. It has no editing. It is the angle of the shot is from below. It's not great, but I still get comments on that video. It has a ton of views. And at that time, I had thought about making this video. Why didn't I? Well, I was going through still deprogramming from Beachbody. I had been out at that time for a full year. It took about a year, maybe a little less, from the time I got my full-time job in the fall of 2021 until I completely disconnected from Beachbody, stopped doing the workouts, stopped drinking Shakeology and the supplements and all of that stuff. So I would say I'd been out of it for about a year. And I was actually really realizing how damaging manifestation was, because I still believed in that for a while after leaving Beachbody. And my brain was starting to put everything together. And I was I see this big anti-MLM community, but I don't see an anti-personal development manifestation community in the same way. And I think we need it. But at the same time, I was starting to realize that I didn't have to post everything that I thought on social media. I didn't have to document everything that I was doing on Instagram stories and on, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, everything. And I was just because I am deconstructing all this stuff and deprogramming and learning all these things, I don't have to put it on social media. I don't have to share it with people. I can keep things to myself. I can privately live my life as a private citizen and work through these things with my therapist and some of my friends who had also left Beachbody or who also were leaving manifestation and realizing that they got scammed, and we were all kind of working through it together. And I just felt I didn't want to talk about it publicly. I just didn't want to be a public person for a while. And now I'm coming back to it in a very good headspace where this is my YouTube I see as a passion project and an outlet for me to perform in a way, because I am a performer and there are fewer opportunities to perform since the pandemic. theater and music are kind of rebuilding themselves still, which is fine. And it's always the hardest for a woman because they're the most women. It's the most competitive. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I don't think of it as something I have to do or that I'm pressured to do. It is something I really am passionate about, and I'm in a good headspace for that. So those of you who are wondering why the year-long break, that's what I was up to during that year. And I have really good perspective on it. I'm still passionate about it, but I'm a little less, it's less personal. It's less part of my story, or I'm less emotional about it on a personal level. Like, how dare you take advantage of me? Now I'm like, these beliefs are harmful. This is part of a harmful industry ecosystem that has been taking advantage of people in different ways for hundreds of years, but especially the last 50 or so years. And I want to call it out, and I want to call out this specific manifestation, which is very sneaky. So that's why I'm making this video now. And the other reason I'm making it now is that we are in a recession, heading for a recession. Things are getting really expensive. Social safety nets are being cut. And it is a very scary time for even the healthiest among us, because you could become disabled at any time. But for people who have chronic conditions or have friends and family on Medicaid or who have a lot of health issues, it is a very scary time. People are looking for side hustles. People are looking for ways to make more money. And just like MLMs, manifestation is there to be very predatory. And the person selling you manifestation will tell you they're selling it to you to make your life better, but they are selling it to you to make their life better. Catherine Zankina is the person who has gotten rich off of Manifestation Babe Academy, not her students. Okay? So, that being said, let's actually get into Module 2. So, what is manifestation? According to Manifestation Babe Academy, she's going to try to have it both ways. It is both a religion and a science, which is not actually true. So, she talks about it's actually been around for hundreds of years. We can find origins of it in animism, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and she has quotes from Buddha, verses from the Bible, verses from the Quran, all of this stuff like, this is ancient wisdom, etc., etc. Great. So it's a religion. No. Then the next part, Module 2, Part 3, she goes into, it's science. And this is where we get just so much nonsense. This is allegedly the unlearn phase of Manifestation Babe Academy. And all of the science she presents in this module is pseudoscience. So she talks about neuroplasticity, but she talks about it in terms of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a scammer technique where they learn how to use specific words to manipulate you into buying their shit. So that's that. The Dream podcast did a great episode where Jane Marie interviewed one of the creators of NLP, and it is so disturbing to listen to. Anyway, Jane Marie does a good job of interviewing people in good faith. She even talked to the head of the Direct Sales Association. Sidebar. It's not like they need a plug from me, but I love her work. And the Dream podcast, season 1 was focused on MLM. Season 2 was focused on wellness, culture, and supplements. Season 3 was focused on life coaching. And season 4 is kind of a mishmash of all of it. The MLMs have been a through line throughout all 4 seasons, but Jane Marie, if you see this, please do a season on manifestation. More people need to be talking about this. More people need to be talking about this scam. So that's my 2 cents on that. She also, back to the module, another example of her scientific proof is, and I think this video was from YouTube, so if I can find it, I will show some of the footage. But there's apparently this doctor that did an experiment on water molecules. And when water molecules are exposed to different emotions, they form different crystals. They form different molecular structures. And it's like this, there's this really epic music with it, and it's showing, it's supposed to blow your mind. Like, water exposed to gratitude is this beautiful crystal, looks like a snowflake, and then exposed to anger is like just all like harsh lines and like yucky formations. If the emotion is good, the water molecule looks pretty, and if the emotion is bad, the water molecule looks bad. And I am like, I would like to see, what the footage I want to see is not the water molecules. I want to see the people doing this experiment. Like, okay, you have a glass of water in front of you and you have been instructed to be jealous. Like, I want to see a video of that, like that person being like, and then like the other person, gratitude. I'm putting gratitude on this water. Like, and this is supposed to be compelling, and I fell for it. Look, I know it seems like I'm making fun of this, and a little bit I am, but this can all be compelling when it works together. And it looks like, oh my gosh, we're 70% water. And when we have these low vibrational feelings, our bodies are forming these angry water crystals. And what that does is it starts to lay the foundation of you policing all your emotions, which for me really manifested anxiety, because I'm already genetically set up for it. Sorry, I love my family. Both sides, love you guys. You're amazing people. But I get it from both sides. Like, people on both sides of my family, grandparents, etc. We got some anxiety. We got some insomnia. Like, it's just, the genetics loads the gun, and taking Manifestation Babe Academy pulled the trigger for me. So, yeah, I would start to police my emotions and be like, oh no, I'm in like a low vibration. And you become like a little bit obsessive, and the experience of being human becomes almost paranoia because you're afraid of manifesting. Does anyone else have intrusive thoughts? Like, oh my gosh, what if I like get hit by a car walking across the street and like I never get to do that thing, and then my family is so sad, and it's like, why am I thinking that? Like, that's just being a person. But once you're in manifestation, you're afraid you're going to manifest that. And so it is, you freak out. You freak out. So all of the videos that she shares, by the way, again, none of this is an original thought. Everything, she has never done a science. For someone who was a pre-med major, allegedly, she does not do a science at all. She does not do any of her own science in this Manifestation Babe Academy. She didn't even do her own science correctly before she started teaching. She didn't lay out a hypothesis. She didn't try to manifest anything and then prove that it worked. She just started teaching it, and when she made money off of it, she was like, see, it worked. I'm like, that's not a science. That's not a science, right? Like, that's not the scientific method. I learned the scientific method in like 3rd grade. Okay? Or whenever we learn it. And, you put the baking soda in the vinegar in your homemade volcano and it explodes. That was most of our first introduction. You can prove something to be true every time if in the same conditions, right? None of this science proves manifestation. None of it has, it can, what she's doing is making it seem like it proves manifestation, when actually it just proves that, I don't even know if the water thing proves anything, because how can you even prove that you were feeling jealous around water? Like, you can't prove anyone was feeling any type of way, first of all. But some of these other ones, maybe you've heard of the 2-slit experiment. That is when electrons were fired through these 2 slits. When they are observed by scientists, they hit as like a solid. When they're not actually being observed, they have a wave pattern. So that proves that apparently none of anything that we have is real, and it's all just like vibration. I'm like, first of all, that's only true in a vacuum. You are not a physicist, and humans are much bigger than an electron. Like, all of this science, when you're in the manifestation zone and you've already gaslit yourself and you want to believe this, it seems like it's supporting the idea of manifestation. The placebo effect is another thing that she uses to support this hypothesis of manifestation. The placebo effect does not prove that if I believe I'm rich, money will just like show up for me. The placebo effect proves that if I believe I've taken a sleeping pill, even if I took a sugar pill, it might actually help my insomnia. Like, because my brain might quiet down and I might actually sleep just as well as if I had taken a sleeping pill. But if I see my bank account has $100 in it and I act as though I have $1 million in it, that's not going to make $1 million show up. See how those things are not the same, but she's trying to make them the same. This is called a false equivalency. So I hope you learned something today. So that is module 2. Pseudoscience, gaslighting, and more pseudoscience and false equivalencies. Are you with me so far? Do you think this program was worth $2,000? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. So module 3, I'm going to keep this one short. It's all about the subconscious mind. And here's the thing. You can't say manifestation is science and then go ahead and say it's all about the subconscious mind. Because, again, scientific method. You have to be able to measure, know exactly what you're doing, duplicate the results. You can't ever know what is in someone's subconscious mind. You can't. You have to go off of self-reported data. Self-reported data is notoriously unreliable. It just is. We lie to ourselves all the time. And the subconscious mind is not even something that all scientists agree on. Like, yes, we have weird dreams. Freud obviously came up with his whole subconscious, unconscious, id, ego, superego, all that stuff. It is not something that is universally agreed upon. So let's just say module 3 is complete trash. Okay, I've now finished my Not Shakeology. How are you guys doing? How is your snack going? What are you having for a snack? If you are having a snack, let me know down in the comments what you're eating. And I want to do a brief Reader's Digest version of this next module. So this is what module are we on? 4. We're on module 4. I want to focus on just 2 parts of module 4. One is the laws, the immutable laws of the universe. Again, none of these are original that she came up with it, and none of these are scientific. What you are not going to see is the law of gravity, the law of every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Any true physics, like, you're not going to see any of those laws. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I do know some scientific laws because I did, graduate high school, and I graduated from a liberal arts university, which some people think liberal arts means that you become a liberal in college. No, liberal arts just means you have gen eds. Like, it's not vocational. It is a comprehensive, you have gen eds outside of just your major. So that's a misconception, but it is unrelated that I became more liberal in college. That is a result of leaving my small town in Indiana and going to university in California and meeting people who are different than me, and then moving to Chicago and seeing systemic racism and poverty at work. So hence Socialist Bethany. Anyway, it was a journey. Here are the laws that she says are the immutable law of the universe. The law of divine oneness, meaning we are all divine, we're all connected. Okay. The law of attraction / magnetism, which is what we are currently debunking. The law of cause and effect, karma. Look, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but like, if everyone gets what's coming to them, the world would not look how it looks. People who are in power, people who are really wealthy, would not be the people who are in power and the people who are ultra wealthy. Like, they got there through exploitation. Anyway, the law of inspired action, which is that like you can manifest if you take the inspired action. The law of transmutation, the law of vibration, the law of mirrors, which this is one that I have a really big bone to pick with. It is the idea that anything that you see in someone that bothers you is reflecting something within you. And sometimes that can be true. Sure. Sometimes someone will really irritate me and I'll be like, ooh, I'm kind of cringe in that same way and that's why that person's bothering me. But when someone is being racist, for example, it doesn't bother me because I am also racist. It bothers me because racism is wrong. When someone is being misogynistic, it bothers me because misogyny is wrong and I'm a woman. Like, when someone is setting up a illegal prison in Florida, it bothers me because it is a human rights violation, not because I want to imprison people without due process. You know? Like, people are bad and that should bother you. It doesn't mean it's a reflection of something in you that is unhealed. That is so problematic, and I can't believe I even have to say that. But that is used to gaslight people so hardcore and to get people to let things go that should absolutely be held accountable. Okay, the law of compensation, which is pretty much like proved to be false. Like, you're not compensated based on how good of a person you are or your mindset. The law of balance, masculine and feminine. This is something that I've been teasing you guys about, that I want to debunk some of those like feminine energy coaches, and I absolutely do. So take this as your invitation from me that if you know of some of those that are big on like TikTok or Instagram that you want me to debunk, please send them to me. You can send me content, or you can send me just like the name, their handle, anything that can get me started on, especially some of the more influential ones, because obviously then I want to, be a voice debunking them. Because again, I don't see a big YouTube movement like we have with anti-MLM, but that's, it started with a few people. Like, if I can start a movement to debunk this nonsense that is harming people, like, I will do it. And I encourage everyone to speak up if you've had an experience with any of these spirituality, light worker, masculine, feminine. But the law of masculine, feminine is sexist in and of itself, because they will say, oh, it's not actually about gender. It's about like the masculine, it's just masculine energy, and it's just feminine energy. And you can also call them yin and yang or whatever. And the masculine energy is that, like, we all need both. So masculine energy is like taking action and, conquering and just like all these really toxically masculine ideas. And then feminine energy is being creative and receiving, like, because masculine is giving and feminine is receiving, and, living the whole soft life thing comes from that. And divine feminine is the creative, like, restful receiving energy. And I'm like, okay, but you do realize that even calling them masculine and feminine is really contributing to some harmful stereotypes, and it's very sexist. And even if you say everyone needs both, you're still saying, like, look at the result. Like, look how many women on social media are like, I just want to be in my divine feminine. And like, capitalism is ultimately incompatible with this definition of the divine feminine. So it's like, it's just wild, because this whole thing is capitalistic and manifestation is contributing to capitalism, at least in this form. It's basically how these women use it is, I should receive money for not doing very much or for just doing what I feel is in my creative zone. So by creating this program that was fun to create and I'm having a good time and I'm in flow, I am now receiving wealth and I'm not being held accountable for the fact that I didn't actually create anything of value and I'm exploiting people's insecurities and people's desperation. So it's my little rant on divine feminine for now. It's a little secret taste of what may be to come when I actually talk about divine feminine coaches. Okay, next we have the law of polarity or contrast, which is similar to masculine and feminine. The law of patterns, like your patterns are going to repeat. The law of reciprocity, the law of purpose, dharma. Gosh, I don't want this video to be forever, but I could go on a rant about how these white women take like Hindu and Buddhist and Eastern concepts and just repackage them as white femininity and make a lot of money off of it. I could say that. I'm just going to say that. The law of infinite possibilities, the law of unwavering faith, the law of constant motion, and the law of free will. So these are, in essence, her way of getting out of any type of accountability or any type of having to prove anything. Because some of these laws contradict each other. A lot of them are just esoteric and not really solid and can be interpreted however you want. And so if you come at her with critique, she can always be like, well, that's a mirror. That's mirroring something that you are uncomfortable with in yourself. Or like, oh, the law of unwavering faith. Like this is the when I get comments on that original Scam of Manifestation video from people who don't believe in who do believe in manifestation and are mad at me for making that video, every comment is like, well, you did it wrong. Like you didn't believe that it would work and that's why it didn't work. I'm like, did you watch the video where I said like, I 100% believed? I was delusional. I thought that, okay, Phantom of the Opera on Broadway was coming back in the fall of 2022. And they were like, we are opening auditions for future replacements of Christine. So I submitted my tape. I obviously did not get cast. I legitimately thought I would get cast because that was on my vision board. It was something I had been manifesting. Was something, it still is a dream role of mine. And I, as a person who had been doing opera, which Phantom of the Opera, I know it has opera in the title. It is a musical. It is musical theater. It is Broadway. Opera is a different industry than musical theater. And some people do both, but like I'm now doing more musical theater, but opera is a completely different industry. I was doing opera, I was doing classical, I was doing oratorio, which is like Messiah, stuff like that. I was having some success, but I had never auditioned for anything on Broadway. I had no connections on Broadway. I didn't even have chorus. I've never lived in New York City. Like I had no connections. And this is the most popular musical of all time, the lead role, and millions of women's dream role. They probably got thousands of tapes sent in. And like, there is just no way I was even going to have a shot. And I was delusional enough to think that like I was getting cast. I was going to be either the principal or the alternate, or even like a swing, which swings get to go on and perform. So that would be fine with me. Probably be less stressful than being the principal. But I had no doubt. Like I was like, I don't really want to live in New York, but like, I'm going to have to make my peace with it. I was looking at apartments. I was like, this is happening. I was like, maybe that's where I'll meet Henry Cavill. Like, I say this like as a joke and I laugh at myself now. I believed it. But of course, people who I'm making them question their deeply held belief, the easiest way for them to dismiss me is to say, well, you didn't have the law of unwavering faith. You didn't believe, and that's why it didn't work for you. Because they aren't ready to let it go for themselves. They want to still believe that it can happen for them. And I get it, but it won't. So yeah, and you can't prove You can't prove it. So no matter what you say, anyone who critiques Manifestation Babe Academy, Catherine can just be like, well, you did it wrong. You clearly didn't believe. Like, you clearly didn't do X, Y, Z right, because there are all these laws of the universe that you cannot prove that you believed hard enough. You cannot prove that you had unwavering faith. You just have to say it. And like, I can't prove it. I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but they can choose not to believe me, and they will choose not to believe me if it makes them uncomfortable with their belief system. So the other part I want to focus on with Module 4 is her addressing the misconceptions of manifestation. By the way, like, the audacity of a 23-year-old woman to think that she is an expert on something that is thousands of years old and she can teach other people to do it is like kind of amazing. But anyway, that's some like white male audacity right there. So I'm going to address these misconceptions and how she kind of debunks them. But then you'll see as we go on and continue reviewing the program that like she teaches stuff that reinforce these misconceptions. Again, this whole time she talks out of both sides of her mouth. She wants to have it both ways. And everything she teaches can be debunked by something else she teaches. Or if you critique it, she can take something else and be like, well, this way. There's exits, there's slipperiness, there's exceptions. It is truly like being in a relationship with a narcissist who's gaslighting you all the time. Like, literally. Professional, you pay $2,000 for someone to gaslight you. So the first misconception is you can't ever think a negative thought again. And she's basically saying like, oh, that's impossible. Of course, you're going to have thousands of thoughts. And manifestation is about your dominant vibration, your dominant feelings. So that's how she gets out of that. But then the next module is on limiting beliefs. So immediately contradicts. And if you say like, well, my manifestation didn't come true, she'll bring it back to your limiting beliefs, your negative thoughts. So it trains you to hyper-police your negative thoughts, because when the manifestation doesn't work out, it's still your fault. So it is the negative thoughts. Apparently they're changing your dominant vibration without you knowing it. I don't know. Like, so I guess you could say the reason I didn't get cast as Christine in Phantom of the Opera is, by the way, the things that I pointed out about not knowing anyone in Broadway and stuff, those weren't even things that I thought at the time. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think that that mattered. I was like, this is mine. They're going to see me in the tape. They're going to be so blown away. They're just going to cast me, and this is my manifestation. Like, those were thoughts that came later when I realized like how stupid manifestation is and what a scam it is. But like, at the time, then when I didn't get it and time kept going by and I wasn't getting a phone call or an email saying like, oh, we want you to come on now as like a swing or whatever, that's when like more of the thought policing started to come in. It was like, well, what was I doing wrong that this manifestation didn't come? Like, did I not believe in myself enough? And like, when your dominant vibration is delusion, you don't start to analyze your thoughts until later. And then you have to like hyper analyze your thoughts, because that's the only explanation for why the manifestation didn't come true. So both sides of the mouth. Misconception 2, you must obsessively focus on your desires 24/7. But then she teaches you to obsess about your desires in multiple ways in future modules. Misconception number 3, manifestation is something you do in a daily ritual. Manifestation is, she debunks this by saying manifestation is happening 24/7. So how am I supposed to not obsess over my vibration? You know, you are making people paranoid with your teachings. Misconception 4, manifestation is about materialism. But, and she's debunking this, but her advertising is her going to the Maldives, her being a millionaire, her having a hot husband, her having the freedom to do all this stuff, which is money. It's what you can say all you want, words, but your actions speak louder than words. That's one of the immutable laws of the universe, actually. Misconception 5, the destination is the end result. She debunks this by saying most of the time it's not about the desire, but how we think we'll feel once we have that desire. And so we want to feel that way now because it's about the journey. Okay. If you are poor, you can't feel rich. If you are truly broke in poverty, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, your reality is that you can't feel rich. Misconception 6, manifestation is about feeling good 24/7. So this is another way of her refuting the never have a negative thought and like, but you just said manifestation is happening 24/7. So what if I need to like truly be upset about something? What if I need to have a good cry? What if I need to feel like life is unfair, because it often is? What if I need to do these things? You said I am allowed to do these things. It's about my dominant vibration, but also manifestation is happening 24/7, but it's not about feeling good 24/7. It's about your dominant vibration 24/7. Well, what if my dominant vibration for 3 hours is life is not fair? Manifestation is still happening during those 3 hours per your teachings. So then for those 3 hours, I'm just manifesting life being more unfair according to you. Do you see how this doesn't work? Misconception 8, I can manifest X, but it doesn't work for Y. And here she says, well, anything you struggle means there's an underlying belief preventing you from doing so. And you have to shift the belief and you'll be able to manifest the thing. The same process applies to everything. This is so much crap. Because, like I've said before, there is no way to measure your underlying beliefs. This is not science. You can't draw blood and be like, oh, I can tell from this blood sample there are 10 underlying limiting beliefs. And then you do the Manifestation Babe Academy, and then you take another blood sample, and now you only have 5 limiting beliefs. That's not how that works. There is no way to know what your limiting beliefs are. So what she does is she makes you come up with them, and then she will tell you how to get rid of them. She sells you both the problem and the solution. It's wild. It's wild. How did I fall for this? I don't know. It's amazing when you get out of it how clearly you can see everything. Misconception number 9, only those who teach manifestation are successful with manifestation. She says there are successful manifestation teachers, but there are also a lot more people who are broke manifestation teachers. Here's the thing. She's like, you can be successful. You can use manifestation to be successful doing anything. Okay. Already, people are starting to realize, okay, all these people who have manifested the amazing lives, they're the ones teaching manifestation. It's when you start to realize in an MLM, the people who are most successful in the MLM are the ones like showing this amazing life. And everyone else is the one making them rich. That's how it is in manifestation. The manifestation teachers are rich because they got a lot of students and they got in early. It is like a pyramid scheme. At least, maybe not like a pyramid scheme, but like any industry, any new product, new market, if you get in early before the market becomes saturated, you get the largest market share of that thing. So, yeah, sure, there are a lot of broke manifestation teachers. Yes. But the people who kind of started this whole thing, the names that I mentioned at the beginning, they're doing really great. And they are not really selling anything. Where's the regular people who are manifesting? It's a religion. So people are going to say like, oh, I got a promotion at work. I manifested that because I took Catherine Zinkina's course. Oh, I did get a thing. I must have manifested that. You know, I have noticed before and after taking the Manifestation Babe Academy that I have a lot less singing work after Manifestation Babe Academy. Now, I'm a logical person, and I'm not blaming Manifestation Babe Academy. I am looking at the condition of the world and the fact that after I took Manifestation Babe Academy, the world started opening up again, and the arts have had to rebuild after a pandemic where so many companies just shut down because they couldn't survive. There was no live theater. And that's the condition. It has nothing to do with my limiting beliefs or my belief in myself or my vision of myself as a performer. It has to do with environment and the world that we live in. And that is the biggest effect on our lives. That's just observable reality. I don't need a law of the universe to tell me that. It is observable reality. Everybody, welcome back. Or you're probably watching just one video. So if you grabbed a snack or a drink, we're going to get back into Manifestation Babe Academy review. Part 2, I'm going to try to hold the mic closer because I got some feedback on my last video that you guys can kind of hear like echoing and other sounds. Also, I'm doing laundry, so if you can hear it going, hopefully you can't. But anyway, we're going to get into it. I want to show you my shirt because I know a lot of you guys are like me, but it's cute, right? It says Bell's Book Club, established 1991, tale as old as time. So if you're not looking at the video, it's just a cute, like, washed sweatshirt. It's also from Page Wings. So obviously I had to go with the Bell theme and put a bow in my hair. And we're going to get right into it because Catherine Zinkina has a lot of bull. So I'm going to get back into it. We ended with Module 4. So Module 5 gets into creating your vision. And she describes her manifestation process, which is basically you have to visualize the thing first. You have to define, decide, and declare. And then you have to neutralize the limiting beliefs. You have to take inspired action. And then you have to release the how of how it's going to happen and take inspired action. And eventually it's just going to happen. So basically like goal setting without a specific plan. So this is why, in my opinion, manifestation coaches are more scammy even than MLM Huns, because they just sell you an idea. They do not sell you any practical tips. In fact, one of her steps is to release the how. Like, it's not your job to know how it's going to happen. It's the universe's job. And if you are truly in the flow in your vibration, you will feel inspired to take certain actions, and that will bring it about. So yes, again, we're going to have it both ways thing. So no matter what the person says in response for like, my manifestation isn't coming true, it's like, well, you can't just sit around and like wait for it to happen. Okay, well, what do I do? Well, you also can't like grind and like force it to happen. It's somewhere in the middle. It's somehow both and neither at the same time. It's like, how is that the case? It is constantly contradicting each other. So in this module, she has several different concepts explore what you truly want in life. She, in this one, says desire. It's a word that comes from the universe. It means of God. So all of your desires are legitimate, which again is from God and the universe. So therefore the universe wants you to have them, which is, I could say that about anything. Like, we can go to the like original Latin or Greek or Hebrew or whatever root of a word and be like, that means this, therefore this. And it's like, okay, how to know exactly what you want? Ego versus heart's desire, being a specific versus a non-specific manifester. It's all just like the specific versus non-specific manifester. It comes from human design, which we have talked about a couple of times on my channel before. Human design was created by a Canadian businessman who was tripping balls in Ibiza and came up with this amalgamation of Hindu chakras, Chinese astrology, Western astrology, all sorts of things, and created this huge thing called human design. And one of those is apparently you're just either genetically, you're either a specific manifester or a non-specific manifester. I was a non-specific manifester. So I would want to envision kind of like the general ideas of things that I wanted or create vision boards. And it didn't have to be like a specific place, but I could just put a picture of kind of like what I wanted and I would end up getting something like that. Whereas the specific manifester would want like brownstone in Brooklyn and then a second home on the island of Fiji and a man who is in finance with a trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes. Like, which again, I think like both of these things, but especially the specific manifester, obviously I wasn't that, but I think that that is a very harmful idea to encourage someone that like they are genetically designed to want exactly what they want. And it is okay for them to want that and not compromise on a single thing. It's like, that doesn't seem like a good idea, but that's the gist of Module 4. It is all about tapping into your heart's desire, which in manifestation means you're allowed to want the most frivolous things. You're allowed to want to be a billionaire, even though nobody needs that much money. You're allowed to want all the shallow things. It honestly encourages shallowness, materialism, and ultimately feeding into capitalism. So that is Module 4. Some of that was actually Module 5 too. So the ego versus heart's desire, that was Module 5. Sorry, I said it was Module 4. It was Module 5. There's also a heart's desire meditation at the end where she gets you to connect to your heart's desire. So Module 6, this is one of my most frustrating things with manifestation is limiting beliefs. Again, like I said earlier, there's no way to know or measure limiting beliefs. But in this module, she talks about the benefits versus the consequences. Oh, if you have benefits to believing that thing. If you are poor, you're keeping yourself poor because there's some kind of benefit to that. Maybe people feeling bad for you or someone being willing to take care of you and you feel like if you are successful, no one will want to take care of you. Things that are actually kind of nonsense. Like nobody, and of course, if someone were to say to her, nobody actually thinks that, she would then say, well, not consciously. So any argument you make against this stuff, she can just tell you it's unconscious. So it's not your circumstances. It's not the fact that we live in late stage capitalism, that minimum wage has been the same since 2009 and inflation has been crazy. It's literal things we can prove with math. Like boomers in the 70s and 80s had a certain amount of buying power. They could buy a house for a certain amount. They could get an education, like a college education for a certain amount, and they could support a family of 4 on a certain amount of money. And accounting for inflation, we literally cannot. Millennials and Gen Z literally cannot. Like we do not have the same opportunities, largely because of Ronald Reagan. But I'm not going to get into all of that, but it is literally math. It is not my opinion. It has been proven with math formulas that we should be a thriving wage should be $66 an hour. A living wage, depending on where you're at, should be around $30 an hour. That's what minimum wage should be had it kept up with inflation and cost of living. And if you look at housing prices, those have surpassed inflation. The cost of college way surpassed inflation. If you're not in the United States, it's university. Sorry. We call it college, a 4-year university. We also call it college shorthand, which we shouldn't. We should call it university or uni, but we don't. I don't know. We are wrong on that one. I will say we should call it uni. I do try to call it undergrad for the most part because I do have a master's degree, which again has not been very lucrative. Why did I think a master's degree in vocal performance would pay off? Because everyone told me I was a very special girl and I would be singing on all the biggest opera houses by the time I was like 30, and that didn't happen because the opera industry is also a pyramid scheme. I could get into that. Some of you guys following me are actually fellow opera singers. Hi, you know me from the opera community. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Okay, so module 6, you have to get to the root cause. So apparently there's something blocking you from manifesting that the root could have started in your childhood, in the womb, generationally, or in a past life. And you don't know, but we're going to root it out. You have to forgive because, again, we're going to weaponize forgiveness against people. So there's like a whole forgiveness meditation in here. And I have not just from the manifestation world, but from the evangelical world, I often feel like forgiveness is weaponized against victims to get them to let go of things legitimate, sometimes even crimes against them, in order to preserve the reputation of abusive pastors and church leaders. And just in general, I think forgiveness is a complicated topic, and I think there's nothing wrong with choosing not to forgive, or if you do choose to forgive, choosing not to reconcile with that person, to not have them in your life. You do not owe someone who has harmed you a relationship. You are free to walk away from any relationship and to completely cut off contact and not want to engage with that person ever again. That is your choice, and you're not a bad person for doing that. You're not being unforgiving. You're not being unreasonable. That's your choice, and I support you in that. So in this module, she also has a time techniques hypnosis. So this is, like I mentioned, there is a root cause, allegedly, of all of your limiting beliefs. And we can hypnotically just dig it out of your subconscious mind and get rid of it. And then the rest of your unconscious beliefs will all just fall away because they're all connected to that one unconscious belief. So she has you do this hypnosis where she takes you back to wherever that, she calls it a gestalt, wherever that gestalt is, that first instance, where that limiting belief first happened. And we're going to do this with, I think, 3 limiting beliefs. And no, 2. I'm not worthy of this, or I'm not good enough, or something like that. And I don't deserve good things, or something. Anyway, so you have to go back in time, and she's like, you can use this time techniques on any of these gestalt beliefs. And if you've never been hypnotized before, it's okay. Like, your subconscious is going to take it from here. You can't do it wrong. So just follow the hypnosis and trust that you're going to do it right. Like, your subconscious is going to like do it and whatever. So you go through this thing and you allegedly find the root cause of the limiting belief, whether that was as a child, in the womb, generationally, or in a past life, and you eliminate it in this hypnosis. And then there you go, you're healed. So if you have that thought again, then you didn't do it right, but you said that I couldn't do it wrong. So I personally have done this time techniques thing several times because it is a normal human thing to fall into despair every so often, or to have imposter syndrome, or to think that you're not good enough for something, or to think that like, I'm just never gonna be rich, which is actually a very normal thing to think if you don't come from generational wealth. Like, that's a normal thing to think because we are humans and we observe the very real obstacles around us, and basically, she's trying to teach us to gaslight ourselves into thinking those obstacles don't exist and aren't important. So that is Module 6. Now we get into Module 7, which is allegedly the like kind of darkest, deepest, most difficult part of the program, the limiting belief blasting section. So we're going to dig up all the stuff because apparently doing the hypnosis that was supposed to remove the inciting incident, which then removes all the other incidences, didn't work. So we still have to do this limiting belief blaster. Also, did I mention the time techniques is not an original Catherine Zankina idea. Neither is the forgiveness meditation. Neither is any of the teachings in that module. And then this module, all these limiting belief blasting techniques are not hers either. So, again, I know plagiarism is a strong word, and I know as a YouTuber who is reviewing this content and who does reaction content, I react to things, I transform them, etc. I make them my own, but I don't charge you $2,000 for it, and I don't promise you that you're going to have the life you've always wanted by watching my channel. I hope that watching my channel helps you feel sane because people are out here spewing this nonsense. I hope that it's entertaining for you, and I hope that it, brings some joy to your day because I think I'm a pretty joyful person, even if I'm being snarky and debunking and saying some kind of real hard truths. For me, it actually is comforting sometimes to be told, like, this isn't your fault. This is systemic. It doesn't mean you should give up. It doesn't mean you have no control. But it's good to know that it's not your fault. And manifestation will have you believing everything is your fault, which is a really unhealthy place to be in mentally. So in Module 7, we're going to list all of our limiting beliefs. We're going to list the things we're gaining from them. And then we're going to go into this step where we knock out the limiting beliefs. We envision it as a table and we take out all the legs. And that is directly from Tony Robbins. Then she has all of these different things. Eye movement trick, not original. EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. That's the thing where you tap on the meridians and stuff, which I think can be useful in therapy. I know some people use it in therapy, especially if you have anxiety, as a grounding technique. But it's not going to make you rich. It's not going to clear a limiting belief that is just going to bring money in. It can help you get centered in your body when you're freaking out. That's what it should be used for. And maybe some other things if you want to comment on that, if you've used it therapeutically. Manifestation people take a lot of real things from psychology or from other areas and kind of twist them and use them for manifestation. So it gives it this undercurrent of validity, this is actually a valid thing. Look at these scientific things they're using, but it's taking a legitimate thing and using it for this nonsense. Vagus nerve activation, not original. Shaking and raging. Again, this is something that can be useful for therapy if you can put on some music and shake it out if you have a lot of anger, healthy outlets for anger management, basically rage dancing, shaking, those types of things. Journaling, cord cutting, which is a type of meditation where you cut a cord that's connecting you to either a limiting belief or a person that you want to forgive or that you want to let go of. Time techniques, again, we just talked about. So she has all of these things that are not original. This is my opinion, having gone through this program several times. This entire program is just a smorgasbord of random psychological techniques, New Age ideas, Buddhism, Hinduism, astrology, and ripping off every other manifestation teacher that has ever been. The Secret, Louise Hay, Napoleon Hill, who himself was a con man, just a bunch of nonsense all thrown together. And I will acknowledge when someone has worked hard, because I, as someone who has a master's degree, brag. I mean, I should come up with like a little thing to play every time I say I have a master's degree, you guys. I don't mean to brag, but I have a master's degree. Anyway, I understand the importance of research and how you can engage in an academic conversation with authors that have come before and like cite their sources to support or to argue with them about something that is academic. So like she has put together a bibliography of manifestation nonsense. So if you were looking for a total package amalgamation of all of the nonsense from the past 100 years of people talking about manifestation and money mindset, then maybe this would be worth the $2,000 for you. Look at me being a balanced reviewer. But if you're looking to get wealthy, change your life, find the perfect partner, this is not going to do it for you. There are no concrete steps to doing any of that. Hire a career coach, get on a dating app, or hire a matchmaker, or go to a singles event, start applying for more jobs, start a side hustle. Like, these things are just going to waste your time when you could be like applying for a higher paying job, or you could be just driving for DoorDash. Just think about, instead of paying $2,000 and then spending like a couple hours on each module and doing the homework and all of these things, you could just drive for DoorDash for 3 hours and make $50, make some money like for each module. And there's like 20 modules, and they probably all take like 1 to 2 hours to get through the module and to do all the exercises. I mean, 40 hours, like that's a whole work week, 10 hours a week for a month. I bet you could make $2,000 on a side hustle. So that is module 7, limiting belief blaster. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit quicker. This module by module review is taking too long. So let me know if, as I mention any of these modules, and I'll kind of give you the Reader's Digest version on what is in them, let me know if you want a more expansive review or if you want just a deeper dive on some of these things. Again, I want to be careful with not revealing IP. I don't want to get sued. Catherine has more resources than me, and she could come after me, and that would obviously ruin her entire brand, and she would have no leg to stand on. But she could sue me. She doesn't have a case, so I want to continue to not give her a case. But I will say a lot of this, because, I talk about IP, it feels like this isn't even her intellectual property because it's just taken from other people. The whole thing is plagiarism, honestly, with her twist on it. So module 8 is shadow work and inner child healing. And again, if this is something you want to work on, go to therapy. Someone who is qualified to talk to you about your childhood experiences and how they could have formed beliefs that are affecting you today as an adult and affecting the way that you move through life. That's true. That is true. Like, the idea of inner child work, again, another thing that they take from something legitimate and try to use in manifestation. Of course, experiences you had as a child make a difference and like inform and have created the adult you are today. Of course. Like, obviously. And also, I'm sure that does result in people sabotaging their own success or not making a certain amount of money. Even some of the examples that she uses of the way people keep themselves poor can be true. Like, and that's why this is so insidious, is because there is truth to it. And I've talked about this. I have a friend who I'm really close with who also deconstructed manifestation around the same time that I did. And We have had many conversations about how predatory manifestation coaches are and the entire personal development industrial complex, and also how there are some really beneficial ideas that live in that space. And that's why, like, people don't fall for something that is just obviously bad. People fall for something where there's truth and there's a very appealing idea and they get sucked in. So inner child healing can be very important, and I absolutely encourage you to work with a therapist if you can afford one, if it's covered by your insurance, on something like that. Please do not hire Catherine Zinkina. She is not a therapist. She's not a psychologist. She's not a psychiatrist. And I do know that at some point she said she was getting like a trauma-informed certification, which maybe is like a continuing ed thing for people who are therapists. I don't know. If you are a therapist, please weigh in. But she doesn't have the underlying therapy education. She hasn't passed her boards. She's not a therapist. And this is a mass-produced course for everybody. It is not personalized to you, whereas like an actual therapist can give you one-on-one trauma-informed therapy to help you with your inner child. So honestly, I think it's less dangerous for you to do it even on your own and just like journal stuff out on your own than it is to do this thing, because this is what cult leaders do. They like give you this vulnerability. You get vulnerable with them and they weasel their way in, and you feel this connection to them that is not legitimate. So shadow work, I also have a problem with, because she says anything that you dislike about someone else is something that you have within you that's just in your shadow. So you need to work on it. Again, we're gaslighting victims of even just someone being mean to them, victims of bullying, victims of toxic friendships, all the way to victims of serious crimes. And saying, like, if you don't like this about a person, that reflects something in your shadow. Well, like, okay, I'm a woman who dates men, and men do things on dating apps where they try to cross my boundaries, or they try to, I don't like it when a man wants me to just meet him at his apartment. That makes me really angry. Like, I get pissed off. He's like, oh, like, just come over to my place. Because it shows a level of ignorance that is astounding, to the point that it has to be intentional. Like, wake up. Do you not understand? Like, for basic safety reasons, we're not going to meet a stranger at his apartment. Like, and I shouldn't have to explain that to you. It's 2025. You should know that. You'd have to be living under a rock. You'd have to be so self-centered that you've never listened to a woman ever in your life to not know that. Like, literally. That is not a reflection of something in my shadow. I am very considerate. I look at things from other people's points of view. I have empathy. And those are traits that I value in other people. So when somebody doesn't have those traits, I don't like them. It's not because of something in my shadow. It's actually because they're not like me. Because I think I'm not going to associate with someone who is not as empathetic as I am. I'm not going to associate with someone that I have to teach basic human decency to. So, yeah. And the situation in the world, I get very angry at human rights violations. That is not something that's in my shadow. I don't secretly want to violate anyone else's human rights. I want everyone to have human rights. So the whole shadow work thing makes me angry on a level that I can't even, see how I'm getting flustered. I'm getting like angry because I'm like, no, these are not things in my shadow. And you, Catherine Zinkina, make me very angry because you are taking advantage of people and you took advantage of me. And that's not something hidden in my shadow where I secretly want to be scamming people. That is me calling you out for being predatory because I don't like predatory people. It's against my ethics. It's against my moral compass. People get mad at injustice. People get mad at things because they have their own personal values. And when someone doesn't follow those same values, people get angry. People get upset. It doesn't mean that they're secretly like that. It actually means they are not like that, and they don't understand why someone else doesn't have the same values that they have, that they think should be self-explanatory, that like I think everyone should be kind to each other. That's one of my values. And when people aren't kind, I get mad because they're not like me. Okay, I've said the same thing like 4 different ways, so we're going to move on. Module 9 is creating your 12-month vision. Again, we get into some inconsistencies here because, well, I'm a non-specific manifester. So how do I create a 12-month vision if I'm non-specific? Obviously, as you may have already guessed, I did this program in 2021. And by the fall of 2022, I actually went through it twice all the way through. The fall of 2021, I got a job. And I got a 9-to-5. That was not at all in my 12-month vision because my income was going down and I needed a real job. The gigs weren't coming back because of the panini. And in order to have the same lifestyle that I had lived before the panini, I needed a job. So I got a job. And then in the spring of 2022, I was going through this program again because I felt so like I had failed and it must not have worked the first time. I must have to do more. I must have more stuff to clear. And I've talked about my struggles with insomnia. In April of 2022, that's when it was the worst. I had like a week where I didn't sleep. It was a nightmare. I was having anxiety attacks. I was sitting at my desk at work, like with tears coming out of my eyes because I had such high anxiety. I was just like having an anxiety attack like at my desk. And I was like, I can't stop. Luckily, I have a very understanding boss. And you know, there was a lot of like understanding and allowing me to continue my job and have more. I eventually went hybrid and that was great. But it was awful. And a lot of it was due to the cognitive dissonance starting to make itself known. I had done everything right. I am an overachiever. If those of you who are into the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3. And I was not manifesting. And I started having the intrusive thoughts of like, what if all of this is bullshit? And then I started seeing the inconsistencies and I started seeing the scams. So the 12-month vision, and I noticed that for people who are in my accountability groups and other people in the Facebook group, the Manifestation Babe, like student Facebook group, very, very few people, maybe like about the same success as MLM, were having any type of result. And that result could not really be attributed to this program. It could be attributed to all sorts of things. So you make your 12-month vision. If it doesn't come true, it's your fault. You must have done something wrong. You must have more limiting beliefs to clear. You must not really believe it, which is, again, going to be the number one comment I get on this video from people who believe in manifestation and feel threatened by the fact that I'm making this video. They're going to be like, oh, you didn't actually believe it, so it didn't manifest. It's the easiest thing in the world because you can't prove it. So module 10 is about becoming the highest version of yourself. Now you've done all this visualizing, you've cleared all these limiting beliefs, you've set your 12-month vision. So now you have to become the person who has those things. It's not just about having those things. And the whole idea is don't wait, to live your life. Like embody that energy right now. And in some aspects of life, again, I will always be fair. I will always tell you when I agree with something. In some aspects of life, this can be very helpful. If you want to be someone who is good with money, start being good with the money that you have now, to the extent that you can. I understand that poverty charges taxes, and like I'm very aware of that. Obviously, if you've watched me at all, you know I've gone on many socialist rants when I talk about MLMs. But if you are someone who your financial situation is in part because of your spending or like not budgeting, like start to be responsible with the assets that you have now and embody someone who is just really good with money. If you want to be a fit, healthy person, like embody that person and make the choices that the healthiest version of you would make. This is actually good advice. Like this is pretty good advice. However, just creating a budget and becoming really responsible with money will not call more money into your life through manifestation. It will maybe reveal to you that you do need like a higher paying job, because even when you're really good with money, it's still not enough. Or maybe you need to move to a cheaper apartment, or maybe you need to move in with your parents for a few months to get caught up and then move back out again. Like all of these things could be the result of you just embodying that person, but it doesn't prove manifestation. It just proves that you took some action to look at your life differently and make some behavioral changes accordingly. I have also seen this get people into more difficult situations than they would have otherwise, because the highest version of myself lives in a exposed brick loft in the West Loop or something. I don't know where that example came from, but I have seen people literally sign a lease for a more expensive place than they can afford because they believe being in the vibration of that place will get them more success in their online business. It's a lot of people with online businesses that take this course. They're either doing the same thing that she's doing or something slightly different. Maybe they're a relationship coach or a life coach or a whatever coach. Coaching industry is completely unregulated. Or they're in an MLM. So it's very few normal everyday people with a 9-to-5. It's people who are already kind of in this like weird internet entrepreneur cult in the first place. So let me just say that. Literally, I know I'm not talking about You Are a Badass, but Jen Sincero does this in her book, You Are a Badass, where she talks about how she could have leased just like a Honda, or she could get like this Audi that was like fancy and that made her feel like the highest version of herself. And so she got the Audi and now she's a millionaire. No, like really looking at the steps in between, which if you look at Jen Sincero, she does mention in other books that she had like an $80,000 loan from a friend, and she has like generational stuff, and she's just, again, a scammer selling courses. But yeah, so the highest version of you, instead of like being the most kind, compassionate version, it is the version that is the most materially successful. And we are again promoting capitalism and competition and just being superior to other people instead of like working together for everyone's greatest good, which in my opinion is the only way we can truly create a higher standard of living for ourselves and for everyone in this day and age. The next module is having faith in yourself and taking inspired action. Again, what action? Just whatever's inspiring. I remember in a Q&A her being like, oh, I'm like really into photography, so I'm just trusting that. I'm like taking a photography course and I got a new camera and I'm like taking more pictures now. And by the time I took Manifestation Babe Academy, she had already made a few million. So she kind of has the freedom to just explore hobbies. And she's like, oh, this is somehow going to like bring me more money and more success and whatever. But this is not like objectively good advice for the average person who is struggling financially. Oh, just like do what feels good. Like the universe will inspire you and you'll know like it's just inspired action. And I'm like, my inspired action is I have now read 100 books this year, and I'm more than 2/3 through the one that I've read now. So I'm almost at 101. And that I'm always inspired to read. So I'm always inspired to do my makeup. And yes, that could be something that could be lucrative, but also being a makeup artist requires a lot of upfront investment and is very hard on your body and your finger. It's a very physical thing to do. And I just didn't want to do it. So I can be inspired to do things that I don't necessarily want to monetize. The other problem with this, which you may have heard me kind of leading into, is trying to think about what you can monetize of the things that you love doing. And not everything has to be monetized. Again, it's giving into this world where we all need to be entrepreneurs or we all need a side hustle because having a 9-to-5 is dumb. And that's for like your average boring people. But cool people are entrepreneurs and cool people take control of their lives and do stuff. And it's like, girl, you're a scammer. So the last few modules are all like a deep dive into human design. And at the time, Catherine was taking inspired action to get human design certified, which again, just shows that you can get certified in anything. And what does that even mean? Human design, we have established, was created by a Canadian businessman who was on hallucinogenic things, partying in Ibiza. It's not science. It's not a legitimate thing. Literally, Catherine has 0 legitimate qualifications in anything real. She didn't finish her degree. Okay, maybe she has a high school diploma. That is her only legitimate certification that she holds. She did not finish college. She is not like a board certified therapist. She's not a psychologist. She's not even a life coach. She has read a lot of manifestation books. And she is certified in neurolinguistic programming, which is manipulation, human design, which is nonsense, hypnosis, pseudoscience. None of these things are real. I think emotional freedom technique she maybe had to take a class for. Like, none of these things are, and I did say, like, the EFT, some of these other things are, like, actual techniques that can be used by therapists, but they are not the therapy themselves. Like, literally, she has no foundational qualification in anything. No legitimate degrees. She's a really good con artist. Like, she's a good scammer. Like, she scammed y'all. She had never manifested a thing. She scammed me. Not y'all, me. She literally never manifested a thing before she started Manifestation Babe Academy. She started it while she was sleeping on her grandmother's couch. So she didn't even prove that she could manifest, that she was good at it. She started selling it, and then when she sold a certain amount, she was like, "Oh, that was my manifestation." Okay. We've established none of this can be proven. You can't prove whether you manifested something or not. You can say, "Oh, I was focusing on this and it came true, therefore I manifested it." But that's still just you assigning that meaning to it. Just like any religious person can be like, "Oh, I was praying for this thing and it worked out." I've seen religious people being like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I had lost this thing and God helped me find it." And it's like, okay, God helped you find your keys, Karen, but like children are starving in other countries. Like there are like war-torn countries right now. What does God care about? What does the universe care about? That's kind of my ultimate thing, is that manifestation is such a self-serving kind of mean girl ideology where everyone is the problem. If your life sucks, it's your fault. If your life is good, it's because you're somehow better than other people. And I just want to say, billionaires, I've ranted about billionaires a lot, and for a lot of reasons, but the ones that we know, like the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, they do not share They continue paying their workers lower than a living wage. They fight against unionization. That is a lack mindset. That is not an abundance mindset. Clutching your money with both hands, white-knuckled, being afraid to lose anything, to even like, you could pay your workers $100 an hour and you wouldn't have to sacrifice anything in your life at all. You would rather go to space than pay your workers a living wage. Like, that is not an abundance mindset. Being so afraid of your workers unionizing so that they can demand a living wage and good working conditions and just more reasonable, breaks, and not having to pee in bottles because their delivery schedule is so crazy. And whoever the CEO of Starbucks is, all those people, the ultra wealthy in this country are so afraid and in such scarcity that they do not want their workers to have even a smidgen of power, even though they can absolutely afford to pay them a living wage. That's just proof to me that it's not an abundance mindset that gets you money. And because some of the richest people that we know of are terrified of losing any of their wealth at all. That just, I don't know. That seems like a mic drop moment. I'm not going to drop my microphone. But that is my conclusion. Having done Manifestation Babe Academy several times, 2.5 times, I started to see the cracks. And even just like looking through it for this video to refresh my memory, I was like, wow, how did I fall for this? Because it's like one contradictory thing after another. So that is it for this video. I know it was a departure. Maybe not completely. I have reviewed Catherine Zankina. I've reviewed that Haley person that is my evil twin of manifestation. And I've always said that I wanted to review more manifestation, divine feminine and masculine, life coaches, like anyone who's scamming on the internet, in addition to my anti-MLM content. So if this is something you want to see more of, please let me know in the comments. If there's someone specific that you think I should check out, please let me know. Someone already sent me like another life coachy person that I can check out. Like maybe I will, instead of focusing on one person, maybe I'll do like a manifestation fails or like life coach fails and do like a compilation of a bunch of different people so we can see that. Let me know if you have experience with taking a manifestation course. What are your thoughts? How did you wake up and get out? If you're considering buying Manifestation Babe Academy, enrolling, I hope this video helped you make a more informed decision now that you know what's in it. And I know that I also might attract some people who are not normally on my channel with this video, and some people might be upset that I am threatening their religion, because it is a religion. It's not science. You can't prove it. Literally, there's no way to prove it. It is a religion, and I understand I used to be religious myself, and it can feel very destabilizing when someone makes you question the entire basis of your worldview. I get it. It's scary, but thank you for watching to the end, and thank you for listening to me, even if it was hard to listen to, even if you got upset by it. I hope it helped. I hope it made you think some things, and if you are currently deconstructing from manifestation and feeling really destabilized and feeling like your whole world is shifting and you don't know what to believe, I've been there. It gets better. Living in the real world is not all that bad, actually. And people are really kind and supportive. So I know we have a supportive community here, and my DMs are open. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. If you liked this video, like and subscribe. And as always, kiss your pets on their little heads for me. And be sure to check out my anti-MLM content if you're into that. All right. Ciao, everybody. Have a great week.
What does perfect even mean?